Hey there, Internet, and welcome to another Rants and Ramblings with this guy. Today I wanted to talk about a new survey that came out which showed that 50% of Canadians are actually living paycheck to paycheck. Now, this isn't just a Canadian thing as well. There's been numerous studies that show that 50% of Americans as well are living paycheck to paycheck. And I think it's quite the systemic issue that we have on our hands. In terms of people having savings, people being able to, have that nest egg, they tend to say that you need 3 months of financials, like to keep yourself afloat in case something happens, if you lose your job or if you get sick. There's various things like that. But in my personal opinion, it's extremely difficult for anyone to have 3 months saved up and, sitting there as a nest egg just in case something like that were to happen. Now, if you look back, if you think back to the 70s, when I think about, what my dad used to do, he worked in a sawmill back in the 70s and he was making $10 an hour. But you could buy a new car at that time for like $3,000, or in the 80s, you could get a house for like 80 grand. You could get things extremely affordable. So now, that same house would now go for, $300,000-$400,000, but that same job in the sawmill is only going to pay you about $25 an hour. I think we have an issue with, the amount of productivity that we're starting to see, industry-wise. Productivity is increasing, but the wages have stagnated in terms of their increases. When I worked at a multinational company, I would get paid a decent amount. It wasn't, it was kind of a middling salary, but at the same time, my yearly increases in my wages, they were below inflation. So technically, every single year that I continued to work at that company, I was actually making less money than the year before. And that's kind of a sad state of affairs. It's one of those things where it forces you to have to look for other employment, go somewhere else if you actually want a significant pay raise or increase in your salary. Because it feels like, the labor aspect in terms of work these days has become a lot more less valuable to employers and to organizations. And that's one of the tough things where, if you're not making enough money to make ends meet, you end up going in debt. You end up using credit cards all the time. You end up using your lines of credit, or you buy a house and then borrow against your house. And it's not like you're using that money in a way that, it's not still being frugal, but it's literally you're using that money to survive. I think what they're not accounting for is the fact that the cost of living in a lot of places has increased substantially, especially if you live in any of the major urban centers. Like if you live in, in Canada, in Vancouver or Toronto, the cost of living there is substantially more than it used to be. It's like you need to move to a small town, but get the same salaries that you'd be getting in one of those larger cities if you actually want to get ahead, save some money, make some money. For me, every month I put a little bit into RRSPs, but that's basically it in terms of my savings. And like doing that, I'm partially doing that to pay back the RRSPs that I took out to purchase the house that I live in. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because, you're not really making enough money to put stuff ahead, but you're not making enough money to survive. And it's just kind of sad. Like, I feel like there's a lot more to go around, and we would be in a lot better scenario if everyone was making more money. So, thanks.